Every month, more movies come out in the theaters than I'm able to go see. So today I'm going to stop and rank 9 2019 movies that I initially missed in the theaters from the worst to the best. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. Share some of the early 2019 movies that you missed in the theaters that you've recently been able to catch up on now that they're on video. Maybe you bought it, maybe you rented it. Which ones lived up to your expectations? Which ones disappointed you? Which ones were just kind of meh in the middle? One final thing before we get started, you can pick up some of these Sean Chandler exclusive I Talk Movies Too Much shirts at my merch store. The link is down below in the description. A bunch of other people have purchased them recently. Kind of a fun way to communicate to your friends, family, the people around you that you like to talk movies way too much. If there's not a sale going on right now in my merch store, there'll probably be one in about a week. You can come back then, see if maybe they're a little bit cheaper. With that said, let's get started. Coming in last place is The Fanatic. Every few years, a movie comes out that is so ill-conceived that you cannot fathom how this film came into existence. Every few years, a movie comes out that is so awful and so poorly executed that it loops back around from bad and manages to catch itself again and become actually kind of good in just how bad it is. This year, Fred Durst and John Travolta give us The Fanatic. This is a movie that it's a pretty unique version of So Bad It's Good because it's not like The Room in that The Room was made by an amateur who wanted to make a movie but didn't know what he was doing. This is a film that has a couple of millionaires creating something with all the mistakes that amateurs make. This movie is brought to you by Fred Durst, the singer of mega popular band Limp Bizkit, and A-list Hollywood icon John Travolta, the star of such movies as Grease, Saturday Night Fever, Pulp Fiction, Battlefield Earth. Okay, maybe John Travolta has a little bit of history of being in bad movies. So what makes this movie so bad? It's tough to even know where to explain. The basic concept is about a man with autism that's like a super fan that basically kind of gets out of hand in his fandom. He gets tired of people being mean to him and things get way out of control. So on the surface, not exactly the best concept for a movie. The execution itself is so over the top that it's both hilarious and wildly offensive at the same time. Part of what makes it so magical is that John Travolta entirely goes for it. I mean, he 100% goes for it with this performance. And I mean, he's got mannerisms, he's changing his voice. It's this over the top performance that you're like, you can't believe that you're seeing Hollywood legend John Travolta behaving in the manner that he's behaving inside of this film. And it's a film with a script that's just unbelievably dreadful. For what it's trying to do, it does it in a way that comes off like millionaires, rich people with a bunch of fans looking down on their fans like, oh, fans are creepy lunatics. Fans are like autistic people that turn into stalkers. Even inside of it, the fact that his character has the conditions that he has this message of like, wait, what are you saying about people with autism? Like, this is not a good message to send. And then even inside of what they try and do with the film, as you move into the third act, there's a point in time where it's kind of going from kind of dark comedy to then there's a cuddle sequence, and then it goes from cuddle sequence to crazy in about 10 seconds. I mean, it just goes this massive shift very quickly. And even the way it happens, the way it's executed, the way it plays out, you're like, I don't know what you're trying to communicate with this scene at all. And then it plays some more jokes afterwards. So this is an absolute disaster of a film. The plot is incoherent. The messaging is ill-conceived at best, wildly offensive at worst. So without question, if you're wondering, do I ever give Fs? The Fanatic gets an F. Coming in at number 8 is The Intruder. This is, I guess, kind of a home invasion thriller of sorts, except because the intruder inside of the story, the person invading the home, used to live in the home. It's not quite a home invasion film, but the home certainly is intruded upon and invaded at times. And this film is just so preposterous, such an odd concept that it just really doesn't come together. It's a film that starts off well enough, especially because you got Dennis Quaid is the intruder inside the film. As this guy's selling his house, that clearly he's still kind of processing the fact of certain things that happened recently. He's a little bit too attached to his house. As it goes along, clearly something's a little bit more off with him than simply him being attached to the home. And then we move into this bonkers third act as you've kind of figured out everything happening inside of it. And it just goes for it. And it's a film that as it goes along, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And where it started wasn't all that interesting beyond Dennis Quaid being likable on screen. It's a film that when it tries to take risks with its concept of like what's going on with this character and how is he going to be creepy in the house and how is he going into it, it goes for it in ways where you're like, what is this? Not in an interesting way, but just like a, huh? And as you get the answers, it just raises more questions that make you loop back around and be like, I don't think that's how that works. I'm pretty sure this would have happened. People would have known about this. Someone would have said this. So it's a film that the shots are in focus. The actors know how to act. A fun fact, the lead actress in this is one of the people that appeared, one of the surprise appearances in the third act of Shazam. I don't want to spoil the third act of Shazam, but one of the people that appears in that third act, she's one of them. I was watching it halfway through and I was like, wait a minute, I know what she's from. So it was fun to see her in something else. The movie itself, I wish I'd seen her in something else, and I wish I had seen Dennis Quaid in a better thriller. Next up is The Hustle, a remake of Dirty Rotten Scoundrels with Rebel Wilson and Anne Hathaway. And I just didn't think it was funny. It's supposed to be kind of like these two women, one trains the other on how to be a really good con person. And so it's all these people deceiving each other inside of it. I just didn't make me laugh all that much. And then the twisty-turny con man side to it, I just didn't care about any of these characters. I wasn't rooting for any of them. So you have a movie where I didn't care what was happening with the characters and then not laughing. Rebel Wilson can normally make me laugh. This is one of the films that I just don't think her shtick worked particularly well. So the movie happened. I was like, okay, that really was quite forgettable. And even as I'm talking about it now, I was like, what was even distinctly interesting that I could talk about? It's just a comedy that's not funny. Coming in at number 6 is Ma, a thriller about Octavia Spencer playing a woman that invites the local high schoolers to come over to her house and drink booze in her basement, but she clearly is something a little bit off with her, and she's got a bunch of rules, and she's had some unusual behavior with the kids, but still, she's providing a place for them to drink booze, so they keep going over there. As the film goes along, clearly things start escalating and tension starts to build until it goes to the full bonkers third act as we kind of discover everything going on with her. This wasn't one that I was rushing out to go see in the theaters when it first came out, because on the basic premise of it, I was like, that's kind of a weird idea for a movie. And then seeing the movie, it was kind of a weird idea for the film. Octavia Spencer is great inside the film. She's, of course, a great actress, so she can be the person you're like, oh, she's kind of fun. You could just see her as a socially awkward person. And then when it starts getting bonkers, you can see her as the bonkers person. You can see her as the person that's been hurt by the past and things that have happened to her. So a lot of the different emotions, of course, she's fantastic inside of it. Certain sequences are effective at kind of building the tension that you want for the film. But overall, it's a film that I just don't think the pieces fit together. This is not a movie that connects with me at all. Because for the first half of the film, you're watching a pretty dull high school party movie of sorts, because it's all about high schoolers whose perception of life is there's nothing else to do. Let's go drink at Ma's house. So they go to Ma's house and they drink and act kind of the fool. And you kind of learn a little bit of backstory about people during this, but it's really just them going and drinking at her house. And then it shifts about halfway into the movie into thriller, I hope you don't die movie. So bit of a shift there. And the second half is certainly more interesting to me than the first, but because of the way this narrative is structured, because of the characters that are established, it really doesn't give you anyone to root for, because they give Ma enough of a backstory that you feel like she's been seriously wronged by certain people. Certain movies inside the film are the people that wronged her, and then there's certain people inside of it that are kind of innocents of the wrongs done to Ma, but they're acting like idiots. They're very behaving in a foolish manner and lying to their parents, spending all their time drinking while underage in a stranger's basement. In which case, if you engage in dangerous behavior and bad things happen to you, I'm less inclined to be like, oh, poor you that you went to a stranger's basement and then something bad happened. And that's the inherent flaw of a film structured like this. So the end result was some great performances, or one great performance, some effective moments in a movie that I was just like, really? This? And then we have Little. This is a comedy that's sometimes cute, sometimes charming, and wildly inconsistent with the tones, and with a lead character that they really dropped the ball on making us care about her. So inside the film, you have an awful woman who's just a terrible person that we're kind of given a little bit of her backstory to understand why she's this way, who suddenly turns into like a 10-year-old version of herself, and hijinks ensue. So inherent inside of the concept, there's some fun, interesting things you can do with that. And some of those fun, interesting things happen inside the film. But it's a movie that can't really decide who its target audience is. Who are they aiming for? Are we going for 13-year-olds and their moms, or are we going for just the moms? And it can't decide which direction it wants to go with the plot, and so it goes for all of them. Inside the film, you have plot lines involving this woman with the guy that she's dating and hooking up with, and the backstory there, the hijinks and stuff going on with them. Then you have her job and her career, and the way she mistreats her employees. And then you have her becoming the kid and having to go to school. And all three of these have a different tone and vibe to them. Like when she has the boyfriend guy, he shows up at the house and starts doing a strip tease, and there's a lot of innuendo inside of it. Even the part where she's at school with the teachers, there's some innuendo there that could be fun with like both kids, but the stripper one is pretty clearly adult humor. And so you have sexual humor with very kiddie stuff happening at the school with them doing a dance number, and then office politics that children wouldn't resonate with that adults would. So it's a film, it's just like, it doesn't know where it's going with all of this. And so the pieces don't fit together. So I'd be like, oh, I liked that scene. In particular, there's the assistant friend type character inside of it who has to act kind of like the mom to her when she becomes the kid. She was actually quite good. I thought she was very charming. I'd love to see her in a better movie. And the girl in it, she didn't do anything wrong. Her performance was perfectly fine for the film. But the script itself needed to pick, is this for 13-year-olds or is it for just the moms? Like, what are we going for? Who is our target audience? That's that experience that we want. And it just was kind of all over the place. The other one that it really messes up is when it comes to making movies, they talk about a save the cat moment in the beginning, the first act of your film. There's a book called Save the Cat written about this kind of concept, that in the first act of your film, to make it so that we like our protagonist in the film, you want them to save a cat, do some gesture that makes us go, they're a good person, I want them to succeed. So even if they do a bunch of bad stuff, even if they do a bunch of selfish stuff, stupid stuff, you see early enough that they do something that makes you like them, so we can put up with their misbehaviors. At the beginning of this movie, they have this grown woman like push over and hit a kid, mistreat everyone, is the worst. And they try and do a save the cat moment by showing us her upbringing and show us this little clip of why she was so hurt and why she behaves this way. But you see it, and your interpretation isn't, oh, I understand why she's that way. Your interpretation is, well, people wronged her and she's done far worse things to far more people that didn't wrong her because she was wronged. So you like her less, because we're normally a little bit more inspired by people when we see them face adversity and overcome it, not become worse because of it. So this was a movie that it definitely at times made me laugh. It definitely had moments that characters, specifically the friend, sidekick type person, I really liked her in the film. The overall vibe of it, they just missed the mark entirely with a concept that should have worked far better. Number 4 is The Kid. If you haven't heard of this film, it's a Western about Billy the Kid. There's also a kid inside of it. It's directed by Vincent D'Onofrio. It's got Chris Pratt, Ethan Hawke, Dane DeHaan. So a pretty good cast, a well-known actor being the person directing it, with source material that pretty good source material to make a good Western. I found this one to be mostly pretty drab. It's not bad. It's just a film that kind of dwelled so much in kind of the conflict and the drama that you didn't get enough of the fun payoff as the film went along. You didn't get enough of the fun side of being in a Western. You got a lot of like, oh man, it was a rough place where people were shady and they betrayed each other, and even the good guys, you're not entirely comfortable with what the good guys are doing. And Chris Pratt, his character is as ugly as the fake beard that he's doing. He's such a mean and nasty person that you want to see him taken out. So you get a little bit of payoff in the third act when you kind of build up to the climax inside of the films. That was pretty nice. But the road to get there just had a lot of stuff that I thought was a little bit nastier than maybe it needed to be. And so I think they could have given us more characters that you could connect with a little bit better for the ride to get to the big payoff in the end. In third place is The Kid Who Would Be King. This is a film that came out back in January, really kind of tanked at the box office, but everyone that I knew that went to go see it actually had pretty positive things to say about it. So it's been on my radar to kind of check it out, watch it with my kids and see how it went. If you don't know what this one is, it's sort of kind of a take on the Arthur legend of what if a modern day kid today turned out he was the person that's the successor to Arthur in our times and ends up having to be the king and the savior of this big coming evil army. That's the premise of it. So it's kind of a very kiddie adventure with a sense of humor because it's this kid like, I am the chosen successor to Arthur. And everyone's like, what are you talking about? So that type of humor inside of it, very British film. And so that's the vibe, the tone of it. I watched it with my kids, and I thought it was a nice little charming film that really, I thought it nailed what it was going for really well. The kids are all cute and appropriately likable or unlikable, depending on which they're supposed to be. You can buy our lead kid as both the kid that's getting bullied and wants to stand up for people and the person that stands up and is giving speeches later on inside the film. When we get into our adventure, what the film does really well is that it has like scary demon monsters that are on fire, but they're not so scary that my children were freaked out by them. And my kids, they're in that age where there's this very thin line between them being really interested in zombies and dragons and scary things and them being afraid of zombies, dragons, and scary things. So they always want to run to that line. And this movie did it really well. Of my 5-year-old daughter was able to make it through the whole movie and enjoy the comedy, the kids on this adventure, the dragons, the demon armies and stuff like that, and be a little bit scared, but not so much that she had nightmares or was like, turn it off, turn it off. And they didn't do any of that stuff. So did a really nice job balancing all the elements. Patrick Stewart shows up for a little bit as Merlin inside of it. And so just a film that I thought was just very cute, charming, had a nice sense of adventure, a nice sense of humor. Felt too long for me. Maybe you could have cut 20 minutes off of it for the target audience. That felt like there's a few too many times where I was like, is this the finale? Oh, nope. Is that? Nope. A couple too many of those turnarounds inside of it. But overall, a really nice little adventure that was far underseen. More people needed to see this movie. Our runner-up is Longshot. I actually talked about this movie just a little bit in my ranking of the summer movies. Spoke about it there. But so this was a bit of a kind of a rom-com, little bit of a political bent inside of it with Charlize Theron and Seth Rogen as our odd couple inside of it, and just a really nice little spin on the genre of instead of it kind of plays the tropes pretty well, but instead of using kind of a ridiculous scenario, it plays into a more believable type of situation that could play out involving someone running for president and a guy just trying to do some journalism inside of it. And so you get some nice laughs inside of it. It has a little bit of absurdity to inside of it. This premise that can be a little bit serious with some of the things that they're going for it. And for whatever reason, you actually kind of buy the relationship between these two people and that they would be attracted to one another. And so a nice little film. Another thing I thought that it did really well is that it's a film that's very much at the core of its plot is politics. You have characters with very strong political leanings, but almost all our lead characters are in the same direction, but it does a really nice job of balancing that out with something that happens kind of later in the second half of the film with one of the characters that has a pretty good message to it and how we should interact with people of different perspectives and not assume things about people in the way that we can be intolerant in our thought towards other people. Like, I thought it worked really well, and just having this one character and the way the character's used at this point in time in the film adds very nice balance to the film. So one that it wasn't on my radar when it first came out, and then I heard a lot of people buzz about it. When I finally watched it, I was like, yeah, I really dig this. But in first place is The Fanatic. I said sometimes we get a movie that's so bad it loops back around and it becomes good again. So The Fanatic is both in first and in last place. I have one more pick. Don't click away just yet. There's another movie, but this is a movie that was one of the most fun films that I did watch this month. Not because it's good, but because it is so interesting in the ways that it bad. Just right out of the gate, the first line of dialogue in the film outside of voiceover is a guy saying,
I can't talk too long. I gotta poo.
That should establish the tone, the vibe of the movie that you're about to watch with this film, and it keeps living up to that. People act insane. There's crazy. There's a guy like, how would you find a celebrity? A girl tells him how to find celebrities, and then a few scenes down the line, she's like, what? You went to his house and you found him? Why would you do that? Surprise. That's the vibe of the whole film. Everyone's ridiculous, over the top. The performances are tone deaf. The tone itself is all over the place. And there's so many lines of dialogue, moments that are so bad that they put a big grin on your face. This is going to be a new film that people get together with their obnoxious friends to watch it and make fun of it. It's very quotable for all the wrong reasons. Even after I just watched it with my wife after my buddy Cody Leach told me I needed to watch it and review it. And so I watched it. And afterwards, I was just messaging him back and forth with little quotes and little moments from the film. So it's directed by the guy that was the lead singer of Limp Bizkit. There's literally a scene in the film where a guy's driving down the road and he turns to his son and he goes, do you like Limp Bizkit? They were quite good back in the day. I really enjoy rocking out to them. And puts in some Limp Bizkit, starts listening to it, and it goes over like 30 seconds of them just listening to a Limp Bizkit song. That's the absurd film that you're watching. The types of moments, the way that they play out, their understanding of the legal system, what happens when people die. None of it makes any sense. But it is a film if you watch it with the right mindset. It will absolutely entertain you. But really coming in first place is The Peanut Butter Falcon. Now, this is a movie that takes a pretty familiar formula about two odd people finding themselves on a road trip where they learn things about themselves and they grow, and does just such an interesting, unique take on it, as everything about these two characters just feels different from the normal characters that are front and center in films like this usually. One of our two characters has Down syndrome, and the other one is kind of a shady fisherman type character inside of it that's not necessarily doing the best things, played by Shia LaBeouf. So the movie starts off and you're not quite sure what you're supposed to make of all of these characters. And then you have Dakota Johnson kind of as a third person inside the mix, trying to catch the person with Down syndrome that's kind of escaped from the place that he's supposed to be. And the end result is just such a charming, sweet, funny, insightful film that ends up just being really uplifting and positive. Just a feel-good type movie as you watch such very different people coming together in this film on this journey they didn't know that they needed to take. They didn't know that they needed each other. And you start to see the best in each of them come out because of this. And as you go through it, there's all sorts of little scenarios they're in that if you were trying to think, what do I want in a movie on a given day, you wouldn't come up with the scenarios inside of this film, the premise of this film. You wouldn't think that where they're going and this guy wanting to get to a professional wrestling training school would be this story that would work so well. But it just does. They manage to just nail the characters, the connection to them. You get Shia LaBeouf playing just such a complex person with a very broken past and hurt, in need of someone entering his life to pull him out to be the person that he's supposed to be. And you see that come out very soon. As soon as you break through the hard exterior of the situation we find him at the beginning of the film, as soon as you crack through that, you start to see this side to him that's been lost by the tragedy of his past, the charming, the kind of the perspective on life, and even the patience with people that he has. And so this is a film that, once again, was not on my radar. I didn't know anything about it. I actually was invited to a press screening to go see it. It was just during a really busy week where I was invited to 5 different press screenings. So something had to give. I didn't know what it was, so I skipped out on it. And then I heard so many of you guys saying I needed to go see it. I went to go see it, and I loved it. I fell in love with it. There's like 2 shots in the movie that I thought, like, okay, that defies physics. That doesn't fit in this grounded tale about broken people that you're telling. And then the final resolution at the end I didn't quite like. But besides that, this is one of my favorite films of the year. I give it an A-. If you're wondering on this particular ranking, I have an F in here. I also have an A-. I've got something in the D's, C's, and the B's. This is my full spectrum of films right here in this ranking. Probably the best representation of my takes on films is this video right here. Anyway, with all that said, The Peanut Butter Falcon was so uplifting, funny, heartfelt, charming, all the things it wanted to be. Very close to being a just fantastic film. Just a couple little mistakes in there, but still easily it comes in at number 1 for me. Remember, if you want one of these I Talk Movies Too Much shirts, you can find that at the link down below in the description. If you want more content from me, check out that video right over there. I don't even know what YouTube is recommending to you right now. Wherever it sends you, if you head on over there, let me know down in the comment sections where it sent you to. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.